Tonight, drunk. I knew.
Hello, Skeptical Root here again, once again from my basement, is like I said, is often going to be my location for my recordings. I want to talk today about atheism, and I'm starting with atheism instead of some of my more socio-political topics because I think that my skepticism about atheism has partially informed my views on other matters in the socio-political spectrum, in that it is skeptical. It questions, and it can accept things as true without, it can accept premises without necessarily accepting the conclusion, because the premises are not always justified. Even if they're true, they may not be justified. That may sound confusing, but when I start talking about them, it might make a little more sense. I'm not even sure if that's exactly the right way that I want to phrase that, because it sounds like I'm saying that I don't do deductive reasoning, but I do. So, my journey to atheism is a very short one, relatively speaking. I was raised in a Roman Catholic household to Catholic parents, and I attended regular indoctrination, if you will, whether it's PSR or CCD, from 1st through 6th grade. And after 6th grade, I stopped going because one day we walked out of church after a regular Sunday Mass, which I had been required to go to since I was born, as far as I can recall. And my mom stopped my sister and I in the parking lot and said, "If you never want to come back here, you don't have to." I said, "Oh, cool. Sunday morning I can watch cartoons just like I did on Saturday morning. All right." I didn't know what it was about because I wasn't paying attention. I didn't care. I was there to kill the time until I could leave, and it seemed like forever. Actually, it was kind of fun to wait to go up to communion because the little wafers were kind of tasty. Kind of sweet, kind of melted in your mouth. Kind of like popcorn, if you've never had them, but they don't taste like popcorn. They taste like bread, but not really bread. Not really. It's a cracker, but it's not really. Eucharistic wafers are interesting. Kind of like matzah, like thin matzah, but not really. So, anyway, I didn't understand why, but I was happy to not have to go back. I had a 2-year absence then in my indoctrination, if you will, because I ended up having to go to a Catholic high school. Unlike my sister, who got to go to public school, but that's because the private schools wouldn't let her skip the 8th and 12th grade, which she ended up doing before exiting high school. She graduated at 16. I was not interested in skipping grades. I was interested in learning stuff, and I would say that my social skills are a bit better than my sister's, but she is a very book-heavy intellectual. She has gotten much better with her social skills over the years, but this isn't about her. This is about me. So I went to a Catholic high school, and I was the kid in CCD or PSR indoctrination. Well, I'm just going to call it indoctrination because I'm not exactly sure which title is more appropriate, or if it's time appropriate. Like it was CCD, and then it became PSR. CCD for Catechism Doctrine, and PSR for Parish School Religion, if I'm not mistaken. They may have changed the name at one point, but that's the what it was. It was indoctrination classes. I was the one in 2nd grade asking how the animals all fit on the ark, because it didn't make sense to me. I didn't understand why the flood had to happen. I remember asking about the animals, and I believe I had asked about why did God have to drown everybody? Why couldn't he just kill them like he did all the firstborns of Egypt? Because, that made sense. And later on, the Sodom and Gomorrah story made as much sense to me, too. This is God. God can go into Egypt and cause a plague that kills just the firstborns. Why can't he go in and just kill all the bad people? If it was that important, flooding the world, killing all the animals, it didn't do anything wrong. It didn't make any sense. But that was me. I was asking the questions. My 9th grade religion class, we spent the first couple of weeks talking about the church and our upbringing and ourselves, and then I think what we did is it might have been the first week or second week of class. We got this packet, and it was 10 questions. It was more than 5 and less than 12. I don't remember exactly. It was 10 questions. We'll call it 10 questions. And each day we would talk about the subject in class, and then we would go home, and that night we were supposed to write an answer to that particular question for the day. Like, tell me about your childhood, tell me about a happy memory you had, tell me about, it was kind of to get to know us thing. And I think the 9th question, it was the second to last one, was tell me how Jesus has been important to your life. Or something like that. Or how Jesus has manifested himself, or has been important to you, or has engaged, how you have engaged with the ministry of Jesus in your life. And I wrote a screed on the First Amendment and freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and it wouldn't be fair for them to give me a bad grade because Jesus hasn't meant anything to me. And surprisingly, I didn't get knocked down for that. I got the teacher thought it was well written, and the only thing that she wrote on the top of the page was atheist or agnostic. I didn't know what those were at the time. All I know is that I didn't believe in Jesus and didn't have any personal experience with Jesus, and that was it. And I spent 4 years, going through the different religion classes that they had at my school, and it was amazingly open about, I mean, it's a Catholic school, so you expect them to be very preachy and stuff like that, and they were, but there was no like question about atheists are bad or other religions are bad. There was no. It was. I mean, the teachings of the Catholic Church in America, and this has always been my experience of it, are very. They're authoritarian, but they preach it from the standpoint that they are right and they are the majority, and everyone who disagrees with them they just have something wrong. It's not that they are wrong. It's that some part of what they're teaching just isn't correct. It's not part of the Catholic tradition. It's not part of the ancient tradition that goes back to Peter and all that kind of stuff. So they weren't jerks about it, and nobody ever questioned the fact that I didn't get up. Well, freshman year, I still went up and got the Eucharist whenever we had Mass. Sophomore year, at some point, I just was like, you know what? I don't believe this stuff. Why? I don't consider myself a Catholic, even though my parents are Catholic and I'm in a Catholic school. And so when we have all school masses in the gym, whether it was for, usually for from some kind of feast, or if it was, we had individual masses for just the students in our particular religion class. We had a chapel, and we also had the big gymnasium that had the bleachers for everybody in the school. Nobody said anything to me ever about not taking communion. Do the thing, and me, and from what I remember, when we have just my entire class of 200 and some students, me and maybe the Indian guy that was in my class wouldn't go up, and I didn't understand why he was going up, because he was Catholic. But maybe it was because it wasn't maybe because it wasn't vegan Eucharist or something. I don't know. But I didn't, nobody ever said anything to me about it. I stopped doing it, and for the most part, I mean, not even no teachers, no fellow students, never had any problem with it. And that was cool. I was not a negative experience, but got out of high school and with this realization that I just didn't believe any of it. But high school being what it is, raging hormones and all that kind of stuff. I was good with people as long as they kept their distance. I felt like I had a lot of rage and depression that I had to deal with, and I started studying probably junior year. I started looking at meditation and yoga and Tai Chi and other forms of like Chinese martial arts, meditative martial art type of stuff. That quickly led me into Western mysticism. I was reading a lot of fantasy and sci-fi at the time, and I discovered Hermetica, the Hermetic high magical systems from Aleister Crowley and the Golden Dawn and the OTO, and I started studying that stuff more. Kabbalah, Kabbalistic magic, some Wicca and neo-paganism, we'll call it, because while they claim traditions, they don't necessarily have them. But I studied that stuff. I engaged in ritual practices. I studied a little bit of Tantra, but not a whole lot, and nothing that I practiced other than delay techniques, we'll call them. But yeah, I studied that for years. I spent over a year just doing some basic, cleansing, rituals such as the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, as the one book called it, which I stacked around here somewhere. Basically just, you call on you cleanse your area, you call on the archangels of the four directions, and you ask them to further support your magic ritual, and then you do some energy balancing stuff, and then that's done. And I did that for over a year, just practicing that every single day before I moved on to any of the other rituals that were involved in that, such as I can't remember, something about the rose and cross, or the rosy cross, or something like that, is another cleansing ritual. Like the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, energizes your aura, and in order to dampen that, so that I don't remember what they called them, some kind of spiritual rats or something like that running around there wouldn't attach onto you. You did this other ritual to kind of protect that field from outside interference, and then there was like the banishing ritual, the hexagram, which actually was a little more complicated. But they all required basically either a stick of incense and a magical knife, some kind of instrument that had never been used to kill something that you used to your energy work. And I had those, and I had begun constructing my ritual tools, the knife of the air and the wand of fire and the chalice of water and the... God, what do I want to call it? It looked kind of like a plate or a mirror. We'll call it a mirror of the earth, which was really a wooden disc that was hollowed out to be concave, and you had the painting symbols and all this other kind of stuff on it. And all that stuff started in a couple of different iterations. I haven't finished any of them because the more I did this and the more I went through this, the more I realized that this isn't going anywhere any more than my ghost hunting had gone in my youth, and all these supernatural things seem to be dead ends. Why is it that certain people can do these things? And the meditative stuff was nice. I mean, I actually did learn a lot of mental control and emotional control, which I'd say in the last couple of years I've let slip since having kids, because man, I tell you what, don't feel like you ever get any quiet. But they're I love them. They're rambunctious, but they're young. I've let some of that stuff slip. But I can go back to it anytime, and that's the plan eventually, is to go back to some of these meditative techniques. Excuse me. But I'll get there. But that was my foray into mysticism. alternate religious theory, we can call it. But none of it ever stuck. I never believed any of it, as far as it was all experimental. It was, let's see if this works, and let's see how this goes. And excuse me, I'm a little dry. Let's see how this works. Let's see if this is going to go somewhere. And other than the mental footwork that went on, I never saw anything greater than that. So, no gods, no demons, no any of that stuff. And I was probably in my 20s, I'm almost 30 years old, before I actually said the word atheist. I kept looking for words that weren't atheist or theist. I was looking for a word that was like, excuse me, something more like atheist. But the arguments did make sense to me, if you will. But I wanted a term that meant I didn't care about any of this stuff. I wasn't interested in the debate between theists and atheists, or the different theisms or deism or whatever however we're gonna classify this stuff. I wasn't interested. I wasn't an agnostic to the fact that, like, relatively speaking, I would say that on the Dawkins scale, in any argument, I won't profess to be anything higher than like a 6. I'm right up there with Richard Dawkins, and it is anything. I'm not a 7. I'm not. There is definitely no God. I don't have any reason to believe that there's a God. My personal Bayesian epistemology on this, if you will, is like, using the Dawkins scale, I'm a 6.84. There's no God. I will say there is no God. It's a scientifically testable claim, because it is falsifiable. I'll say that I can, to some extent, defend that in the lack of evidence that we found for it. But if God were to show up, or God were to some way manifest himself or herself or themselves and match any theistic claims that we've made to a T, or even a combination of claims of different gods, so that we could say, okay, like Apocalypse from X-Men can meet all these different criteria of some kind of god, I might accept that's the source that it came from. But unless they're building universes, I can't accept that it's the Christian theistic or Muslim theistic claim, or even the Jewish theistic claim. The Abrahamic, we'll just call it Abrahamic. The Abrahamic claims of God. I don't care. It's not who that is. And if someone like that were to show up, they should understand a way to convince me. As much as I would like to make some kind of grandiose statement about it, I'm going to have to go with Matt Dillahunty on this and say that God would know how to convince me. That would be part of their makeup, is to understand that. So, anything else could be a delusion or a dream or something like that. They should know how to convince me that they are God. So that's it. That's my trip to atheism, my background. This has been my longest video so far. It's going to be close to 20 minutes. But I think that it's hopefully a little more interesting. I'm going to talk about some other stuff. I'm actually going to do, I think my next one is going to be something on theistic claims in particular, and not just on me. I might do some counter-apologetics video next. So stay tuned for that. I'm sure you're going to be real excited for it. You listen to some guy this is his 4th video now, and it's already up to 20 minutes. What do you do? All right, everyone. Thanks for watching, and goodbye and hello, as always.
If it doesn't